After a lot of effort, I've uncovered 4 chilling chronicles of fear and mystery. Each one is packed with suspense and twists, so get ready to be on the edge of your seat. It was an ordinary evening in a cozy suburban home, where a father prepared to tuck in his 7-year-old son. This nightly routine was a cherished moment between the two, a small ritual that ensured the boy felt safe and secure before drifting off to sleep. The father entered the dimly lit bedroom, the soft glow of a nightlight casting gentle shadows on the walls. His son was already nestled under the covers, seemingly calm. Yet, something about him felt off. His face looked the same, but his grin was unnervingly wide, stretching from one ear to the other. "Hey, you okay, buddy?" the father asked, his voice laced with mild concern. The boy nodded slowly, his grin unchanging. Then, in a sweet but unsettling tone, he said, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." The father chuckled, brushing off the request as a typical childhood fear. He knelt beside the bed, the wooden floor creaking softly under his weight, and leaned down to peek beneath the mattress. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Under the bed, curled up in fear, was his real son. The boy's face was pale, his wide eyes glistening with tears. His lips quivered as he whispered in a shaky voice, "Daddy, there's someone on my bed." The room seemed to freeze in that moment, the air growing cold and heavy. The father's mind raced, his heart pounding as realization dawned. He slowly straightened up, dread coursing through his veins as he turned to face the figure lying in the bed above. The grin had widened, and the night was anything but ordinary. A hiker ventured into the wilderness for a solo adventure, craving solitude and the crisp mountain air. The day was idyllic, with the sun filtering through thick canopies of trees and the gentle rustle of leaves accompanying his every step. For hours he trekked along the winding trail, enjoying the serenity and freedom that came with being surrounded by nature. As the hours passed, the sun dipped lower in the sky. Satisfied with his 8-hour hike, he turned back toward the direction of his car, or so he thought. The dense forest, which had felt comforting earlier, now seemed foreign. Every tree looked the same, every trail indistinguishable. Panic began to creep in as he realized he was lost. By the time darkness blanketed the forest, he had no idea where he was. Armed with only a failing flashlight, he knew it was too risky to wander further through the maze of trees. Desperation weighed heavy on him as he considered spending the night exposed to the forest's perils. Just when hope seemed to wane, he stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin hidden among the trees. Its weathered wood and overgrown surroundings suggested it had been abandoned for years. Hesitant, but left with no choice, he knocked on the door. The only response was the creak of the wind brushing past the structure. Letting himself in, he found the interior as eerie as the exterior. Dust coated every surface, and the air was stale, yet in the center of the room stood a bed, perfectly made and inviting. Exhausted and reasoning that any owner would understand, or likely no longer exist, he decided to rest there for the night. As he lay in the bed, his flashlight flickered out. In the oppressive darkness, his eyes adjusted, revealing a disconcerting detail. The walls were lined with portraits of people. Their faces were strange, their smiles wide and unsettling. Their painted eyes seemed to follow him no matter how he shifted in bed. Unease clawed at him, but his exhaustion eventually overwhelmed his fear, and he drifted into an uneasy sleep. When morning came, sunlight streamed through the cracks in the cabin. Relieved, the hiker sat up, ready to resume his search for the trail. He glanced at the walls and froze. Instead, he saw windows. Each one revealed the twisted forest outside, but his breath caught as he realized the truth. The portraits had been figures outside the cabin, watching him through the night with their faces pressed against the glass. In a bustling hospital, the staff worked tirelessly under the weight of life and death. It was a place where every detail mattered, even the small colored bands adorning the patient's wrists. Green signified life, those who were fighting and still had a chance. Red, however, marked the end of the fight, reserved for those who had passed away. Late one night, a weary doctor was instructed to retrieve some supplies from the hospital's basement. The night shifts were always eerie, with the quiet halls and dim lights amplifying every sound. The doctor walked briskly to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. When the doors opened, he was surprised to see a woman inside. She appeared calm, standing with her hands folded. Patients were occasionally allowed to wander the hospital to stretch their legs, so her presence wasn't entirely unusual, though it was rare at this late hour. "Good evening," the doctor said, offering a polite smile as he stepped in. The woman didn't respond, her eyes fixed on the elevator doors. The doctor pressed the button for the basement and noticed she hadn't selected a floor. His curiosity stirred. Strange, he thought. Is she going to the basement too? The elevator descended with a faint hum. As they reached the basement, the doors slid open to reveal a dim corridor. In the distance, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man limping towards the elevator. The sight sent a chill down the doctor's spine. His heart raced as he quickly pressed the button to close the doors. The woman beside him frowned, her expression one of annoyance. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice sharp. "He just wanted to get on." The doctor swallowed hard, his voice trembling as he replied, "Did you see his wrist? It was red. He died last night. I know because I performed his surgery." For a moment, the elevator was silent except for the sound of their breathing. Then slowly, the woman lifted her hand. "Like this one?" she asked, her lips curling into an unnatural smile. Her wrist bore a red band. The doctor's scream echoed as the elevator lights flickered and the woman's smile widened, the air around her growing heavy with an unnatural chill. A man had recently moved into a new apartment building. Excited to settle in, he went to the receptionist's desk to collect his keys. She handed them over with a smile but gave a strange warning. "Don't disturb the door with no number on your floor." The man, puzzled but eager to unpack, didn't ask any questions. Days passed, and he began to feel more comfortable in his apartment. But soon, curiosity began to take hold. What was so important about that door with no number? Why the warning? One evening he decided to investigate. He walked down the hallway and found the door. It stood there, ordinary but somehow eerie in its blankness. Hesitant, he reached for the doorknob, but it was locked. Undeterred, he crouched to look through the keyhole. At first, everything appeared dark, but then he made out the figure of a woman standing motionless in the far corner, her pale face hidden by long black hair. Something about the scene made him uneasy, as though he shouldn't be watching. The next day, curiosity gnawed at him again. He couldn't shake the image of the woman. He returned to the door and looked through the keyhole once more. This time, the entire room was bathed in red. Red walls, red furniture, everything was drenched in crimson. His heart raced. It felt wrong, unsettling. Unable to ignore the strange feeling, he went back to the receptionist and asked about the door. She sighed deeply and looked at him with a knowing gaze. "You looked through the keyhole, didn't you?" she asked flatly. He nodded, and she leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You should never have done that," she said. "That apartment used to belong to a couple. They were different, pale skin, black hair, and red eyes. The husband went mad and murdered his wife there, but they weren't like normal people." She paused. "When you look through the keyhole, you're not just seeing what's there, you're seeing them, trapped, and sometimes they can see you too." The man's blood ran cold. The woman he had seen, could it have been her, trapped in that apartment, her red eyes watching him? He shuddered, realizing his curiosity had led him into something far darker than he could have imagined. At this point, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping stories. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest content. We appreciate your support.